this is and what you're up against. 15% is going to be weighted on security and risk management. Unfortunately for you guys, you may have one question on the NIST 853, and that's a big hot maybe. So if you're an expert in the risk management framework for this exam, I'm just going to say, so what? The good news is that if you understand fundamentally how the risk management framework, and specifically the NIST special publications dealing with RMF and in or around the 853, then any of the other frameworks that we're going to review today, you should see that they dovetail nicely into everything meaningful whenever we're talking about that. Not a lot of focus on asset security. There's a bunch of information with these two, especially in the comms. If you don't have a background on how data gets moved from one place to another and some of those mediums that are used, that's okay. That's okay. So if you don't have a background in that, this stuff, specifically the networking communications, can be daunting. When we take a look at this domain, the network security and the communications, you're going to see that there's just so much information, and it's absolutely okay that right now you don't understand that. Knowing the acronyms puts you in a position to be successful. You're going to have mostly multiple choice, and you're going to have roughly 150 questions and 180 minutes. I've seen people pass this thing right at question 100. And so the adaptive, it'll pepper you with all the different domains that you see over on the right-hand side and get to a level of competency with each of those domains to put you in a position possibly pass this thing right at 100. If you start moving closer to that Mason-Dixon line of 150, let's say you get to like 135, 136, 137, you shouldn't feel like you're going to fail it. It's just you're still having to prove the competency. Even if you get to 150, we've had plenty of people pass this thing with 150 questions. And I guess the good news here is that you don't have to have an A level of understanding. And you know what? You don't even need a B. This is almost a D, just to give you in perspective, right? 69 would be a D in my classes, but you just have to have a C minus, which we consider average, right? A 70% understanding of these things. And so that's why we typically say it's 10 miles wide and an inch deep. You got to know a little bit about a lot, but you don't have to get down and split hairs and get into the detail of everything, which is kind of cool. I think that while you're going through and preparing for this thing, it's totally okay for you to not know most of this stuff. The mitigation to that as lifelong learners, in my opinion, is you figure out what you need to do to never have to ask that question again. For instance, if you see the acronym NAT, N-A-T, and you don't immediately know what NAT is, make a note card, make a flashcard. If you see the acronym DMZ and you have no idea what that is, make a note card. Write it down on your piece of paper. Go back and make a note card later on tonight as you're preparing for this. Because there's going to be a ton of acronyms, at least 100, even for some of you people that have multiple degrees or higher level degrees, professional student kind of people. There's going to be plenty of stuff that either you've known at one time and you've slept since you learned that, or you've never heard of it before. And it's up to you to go and make sure that you, next time you see that on the exam, or if you're taking a test question, that you can eliminate that, or you know that that's the answer. And I'm telling you, 100% in my experience, that making those flashcards definitely helps here. So 100 questions, as few as 100 questions, you need 70%. You got 3 hours. And as we get closer to the end of the week, I'll explain, what that looks like for some of you that have never taken certifications before, what you should expect whenever you go to the Pearson VUE Testing Center. Usually they're pretty cold. So I recommend that people bring extra, long sleeve so you can, or a jacket or something so you can take it off. But I'll go through and explain some of that to hopefully put you in a position to not be nervous or not as nervous as you get closer to this. So it's adaptive, which if let's say that you aren't very good with firewalls, as you go through and take this exam, you're going to think that the exam was nothing but firewalls. What we've seen with these adaptive tests that have come to life, especially the ones from ISC2, whether it's the CAP, Certified or Certification and Accreditation Professional, the SSCP, and some of the other certifications ISC2 does with the adaptive testing, is whatever deficiency you have in this curriculum that we'll be going through, it's almost like they're putting salt in the wound. Like they're literally catering the test to whatever deficiencies you have. Wow. And typically they can understand that within the first 25 to 30 questions. But those absolutely do count. And since it's linear, you can't mark it for review and go back. If you do not pass the exam here, usually there are guidelines that ISC2 does for retakes that are shown up here on the screen. So 30 days, if let's say that you're not successful when you take it, you have to wait 30 days. Just if you don't know, the voucher is $700. They make you wait 90 days if you failed it twice, and 180 days if it's the third time. You can only take it 4 times within 12 months. I've never met anyone who has failed it 3 times or more. I've met people that have taken other boot camps who have failed it the first time, and then they come to us and they pass it on the second. So that's usually the MO that I typically will see. So here are the requirements that are important for you to have. This is what ISC2 says. This is not what I say. Here, there's the 5 years of work experience in at least 2 of the 8 domains, and it must be paid full-time employment. So what they'll do is they'll make you a provisional ISC2 certification holder, and with the provisional, quote unquote provisional, being that they'll go and check your people that have vouched for you. Some of the things, like people that have multiple degrees or a bachelor's or a master's or PhD in certain disciplines within these 8 domains, those can suffice for the work experience. In addition to, a few of you said the Security Plus, some of you said some of the SANS, obviously some of the upper academia, so masters and PhD level, you guys could probably clip out of that work experience as well, just to give you some of the requirements. But if you don't meet this, then what they do is they make you, quote unquote, an associate of ISC2 until you get the necessary experience. So what you have to do is you have to have a current CISSP in good standing. So somebody who already has the CISSP vouch for you, and you have to provide them with your resume and people that they can contact to verify your resume. What's important for that is to note is that some people are like, well, I don't know any CISSPs. If you ask around a little bit within your organization, there's some people that could potentially do that for you. And so lastly, in addition to the resources that I already gave you on the website, going to the actual official ISC2 website to look at what they recommend is, that's from the horse's mouth. And so they do have a study guide that I'd recommend. I'll show you guys here after the break, going and downloading that. Quizlet's a great resource, just for the flashcard components. And then we're going to introduce you to this C-Secure They've been around quite a long time. The resources we give you throughout the week include not only sample test questions, but the Cybex book includes a test engine as well. Not only do you have to know this 10 miles wide and an inch deep, but you got to be a decent test taker, okay? You got to be a decent test taker. And I'm going to show you some techniques throughout the week that we typically teach people in order to be successful with this.